Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started here in just a moment. If you want to just maybe share where you're tuning in from, we'd love to just know where everyone is at. Always a fun way to get started for our sessions. All right, we'll begin here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for Breaking the Mold, Building an Associate SE Program to Diversify Presales and Ignite Growth with Ron Whitson. My name is Ty Sartor. I am the Buyer Enablement Engineer at Consensus, and I'll also be your moderator for today's session. DemoFest is presented by Consensus. Consensus is leading the world into the era of demo automation. Our platforms help get your buyers what they need when they need it. It then multiplies your revenue team's impact with unique insights on those buyers. And as a result, you'll see faster close times, larger deal sizes, and higher close rates. You can learn more at goconsensus.com. We also have an automated micro demo for you at the link in the Docs tab to the right of your screen. We encourage you to participate in today's session. Participation is definitely encouraged. On the right side of your console, you can see a few ways to engage with us throughout the session. The chat function will allow you to engage with us as well as other attendees. And our speaker is going to be taking questions from the audience at the end of the session, but we encourage you to ask those questions at any time through the Q&A box. And if at any time you have any technical difficulties, you can head to the gear icon at the bottom of your screen. And here you'll see a help document to help troubleshoot common issues. And now I would like to introduce our speaker, Ron Whitson. Ron is experienced in pre-sales as a pre-sales leader with a strong background in sales engineering and solutions consulting. He possesses a natural ability to take complex software and present it in simple and straightforward ways. I can attest to that. Currently serving as a vice president of global pre-sales services at Seismic, he leads a team of experienced sales engineers and plays a pivotal role in guiding others as they embark on their careers in this field. And fun fact, Ron also was awarded the highest rated speaker and highest rated content out of all 50 sessions last year at DemoFest. And with that, I'll turn the rest of our time over to you, Ron.
Thank you very much, Ty. I appreciate that. Let me get my screen shared out here. There we go. And you're tuning into this because you find something interesting about bringing diversity to pre-sales. This is an actual program that Warren Villanueva and I have built. We're very proud of it. It's been about 4.5 years in effect now. And we want to share some information about that and some of the benefits that we've seen over time for that. I also want to thank Consensus for this amazing Demo Fest. I was actually in Tony's session previous and just about missed my start time, so apologies for that. But it's been great to have the time and attention focused on our profession and such great speakers sharing stuff. So thank you once again to Consensus. This is amazing. And thank you all for choosing to watch this session. Hopefully it's going to be informative and entertaining. I do have one little caveat, though. This is what's going on right now. So this storm is blowing in right as this session is starting.
Hey, Ron.
And it's actually, yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. I think we're seeing the wrong tab. I think we're seeing just the DemoFest page.
The DemoFest page or the invite?
Yeah. Just the page, I believe.
Oh goodness. Okay, let's see if we can figure this out.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure.
No, I'm glad you did. Okay, we'll try this once again. We're going to share screen one. How's that? Are we seeing the storm that's on top of me right now? So if I disappear suddenly, it's probably because of this. But anyway, let's kind of get into this. And the first thing is, I'd like you guys to help me out. We're going to have a little fun here. This is a drawing, and I would like for you to take a minute, see what you think the drawing is, and then do me a favor and drop it in the chat. And Ty, you're going to have to read some of these out because I'm sharing and I can't see the chat as we're going through the session.
Yeah, we've got a tree, peacock, an iris plant, margarita. I like that. A blossoming flower. They're coming in fast. A spider doing a handstand, one-handed, sunrise, a dandelion, many more.
That's great. And there actually is a correct answer here. And someone actually did hit on it. If you're not familiar with this is known as a droodle. So Roger Price created these back in the 50s. It was in a cartoon in a newspaper. And since then, they've been collected in some books. But yes, a spider doing a handstand. And all the clues are there. If you count the legs, there's 8 of them. So it makes a lot of sense. But there's a lot of great answers to this. And we all interpret it differently. And as Ty was kind of running through all those answers in the chat, why do we all see something different? And there's a really important answer. It's diversity. Now, a lot of times we think of diversity as one thing, but there's actually quite a few different dimensions to diversity. And that's what this session is going to be about today. So think about the things you've experienced in your life, your culture, your values, your background, your abilities, your learning abilities. So all those contribute to this wonderful human being that you are, and it influences everything that you see and that you do. Now, I always like to package up your takeaways. So I've got 3 main takeaways for this session I'd like you to walk away from. This with. There we go. Get all my prepositions in order. The first is this idea of broadening our definition of diversity and not kind of locking into the things that we always talk about. Second one is to realize the benefits of having more diversity on your team. And I'll talk about some of the real benefits that we've observed and experienced. And finally, the last half of the session, I want to talk about some concrete steps that you can take for building out an associate SE program. This is how we've gained those benefits by building this program out over the last 4.5 years. So agenda, pretty straightforward. A little bit of redefining diversity, talk about some of those broader definitions, benefits of diversity to our pre-sales teams. But guess what? There are some barriers. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. And then building out an associate SE program. And as I said, I'll take some time for questions, but I also have some questions for you all that we'll cover kind of at the end. So I don't necessarily want to completely redefine diversity, but if a company is approaching diversity, or if as an individual, you're approaching diversity from this, standpoint of quotas and political correctness and those types of things, you're really missing out on the value and the critical nature of this. It's really about the value of having those wide range of experiences and perspective and background. So to broaden this definition, I'd like to ask you to think about other dimensions of diversity besides just race and gender. And the way I would like to do that is, if all my tech is working, we got a little Menti action going on. I know several presenters have been using this over the course of DemoFest. It's a great tool. So if you've not used it before, you can join on your phone or on a browser at menti.com, plug in that code at the top of the screen. And my question to you is simply, what are some of these additional dimensions of diversity that we should consider besides some of the obvious ones like race and gender? Oh, is that at me age? No, just kidding. Backgrounds, absolutely. Socioeconomic backgrounds, your values, where you were raised, right? Oh, now some more are coming in. Humor. Boy, humor is a tough one sometimes, right? Knowledge. Oh, that's a good one. So you all already are thinking along these lines. And the reason I think it's important to consider these different dimensions of diversity is I want a little bit of all this on my team, because this is going to really fuel our ability to solve problems and do the work that we need to do. Biases. There you go. Yep. Work experience, just experience in general. Nationality. Yep. Kind of ties in with culture, right? Very good. We'll have one more Menti later on, so just kind of keep it handy. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of these benefits of having diversity in pre-sales. And I kind of already mentioned it a little bit, but my job is to solve problems. That's what I've always felt the job of a pre-sales person, of a sales engineer, as a solution consultant was. And we're trying to solve the business problem for our customers most of the times, but as pre-sales leaders, sometimes we're asked to solve bigger problems for our team or for our company. And there's an old saying, you guys are familiar with it: if the only tool you have is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. Now, a hammer is a pretty good tool, but there's going to be more problems than just some nails to beat into the ground. So the broader the experience, the broader the background, the broader, I can say this, the broader the diversity of your team, the more options you're going to have at coming up with some really good solutions to the problems. Increased creativity. This is one of the biggest benefits that Warren and I saw as we were building out this team, was all these new ideas and all these new creative thoughts for putting together content and putting together solutions across the team and some of the systems that we were putting in place. Stronger team performance. There was actually a McKinsey study that showed diverse teams produce 35% better results than their peers. And then just go one further for you. There is a study that says 69% of Gen Z and millennials will stick around for 5 years or longer at a company when there's diversity in their team. So some really good reasons for doing this, but also having that stronger team performance. And finally, think about this. What do your buyers look like? Your team should look like your buyers. You're going to have all kinds of different humans on your buyers' teams that you're dealing with. So let's go build teams that look like them. That's going to give you the ability to make those better connections with your buyers. All right. So this is a rhetorical question. You don't have to put this in chat. You don't have to answer this out loud. But if we're in agreement that true diversity is really important, if we're in agreement about all the values that can bring to our teams and increase our performance and make us better, why the heck is this so hard to do? And the reason, I believe, is that there are barriers to doing this. And some of these barriers are things that we can take action and we can actually work on today. Some of these things are probably going to take a little bit longer to make changes to. But I want you to start thinking about these, because we're going to workshop some solutions here in just a minute. But limited talent pool. A lot of times this is simply about awareness. And I think we've got to consider where we're advertising different positions and how we're making other people aware of the types of jobs there are, not only in SaaS and tech, but in pre-sales in specific. Unconscious biases. Again, we have them. We can be aware of them, but we have to be aware of them. We have to be able to act on them as we're looking at increasing the diversity of our team and looking at great talent that we can hire. Lack of diversity in STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, right? That's just a career that's typically been a certain demographic of people. There's been great changes over time, but we still need to work on that. There may be opportunities for you to volunteer. I did a thing when I was at IBM where we volunteered at this. It was a full day event at a local college called Expanding Your Horizons. It was for like elementary age young girls to come and hear, excuse me, guys, different speakers talking about stuff. And we did a session on, alternative energy sources, talking about wind power, talking about solar power. And we spent some time talking about it. Then the girls actually assembled solar powered cars and we took them out in the hall and they had these spotlights to race them. So it was a lot of fun. But, sometimes just that exposure to something different can trigger something and make someone start considering different lines of work and different things to investigate. And the last one, maybe one of the most difficult ones to change, this idea of resistance to change. We're human beings. I always think it's really interesting that we're always so adverse to change and worried about it. But from the day we're born, it's constant change, right? Everything changes all the time. So it's interesting if we could actually get to a point where we're less resistant to change and where we can become more of change agents. So this is how I think about some of these barriers, and we'll talk about some of the things that Warren and I did to address some of them. But right now I've got the other Menti up for you. So slide over that and go to the next slide. And I've got the barriers listed out to the right once again. And again, just asking you to kind of think about what are things that we could do to address some of these. I talked about some of my solutions, but what are some of the ideas that you all have? We've got a lot of smart brains here, and that's probably better than just my brain. Listen and ask for help. Yeah, that's a good one. I talk a lot about empathy and active listening. So that's really helpful for going out and starting to identify and document and define the problem that you're looking to address. Absolutely. Objective versus subjective hiring criteria. Very good. Yeah. Sometimes that subjective shows up in some of our unconscious biases, I think. Look beyond former product SME sellers for talent. Oh, that's a really good one. And I've got a great story about that we'll share here in just a minute. Act as a sponsor in addition to being a mentor and a coach. Yeah, that's really interesting. So these ideas of, what does it mean to mentor someone? What does it mean to coach someone? But then what does it really mean to sponsor someone? And I see those as like increasing levels of responsibility and action that you're taking. So that's a great one. Reach out to diverse people, ask them to share and help out. Again, I think it kind of ties to the first one. Listen, ask for help. Find people who you want to bring to it, who have that diversity that you're looking for, and ask them, hey, do you want to come join us? If not, why not? What would make it more attractive for you to join us? They may have some needs that you're not aware of that you may need to address. Be the positive voice of change. Boy, that's a great aspirational thing. And I do believe that we're doing some of that within the program. And again, hopefully you guys will see that as we kind of go through here. Good stuff. Limited talent pool. I think the other thing to consider there is, where are you going for your talent? Because if you're always going to the same places and it's always the same candidates, it's really hard to make a change there. I was talking to someone earlier and they were talking about their neighborhood, and in their neighborhood, it is very common to do advertising on telephone poles. So if you want to address people in that neighborhood, that may be one of the ways you need to advertise. So think about where the talent is that you want, and you may have to change some of the ways that you're going after that talent. Avoid making inappropriate jokes and calling out people who do make them. Thank you, Bangma. I appreciate that. All right. You guys have done a great job on this. Let's go ahead and move forward a little bit. So we talked about broadening our definition of diversity. We've talked about some of these benefits that are available by diversifying, and we've talked about some of the barriers. Let's get into our program that we built just a little bit. And here is a lovely picture that was taken this February. We actually had a chance to get the entire team together for the first time. This is a portion of the team. Our GPS team at Seismic is a bit larger. These are the associate SEs and Warren Villanueva up there front left. In addition to these guys, we have our platform architects who go deep on InfoSec, integration, those types of deep IT questions. We've got 2 principal SEs who support our partner organization. And we have a couple of platform specialists who can go deep on some of the acquisitions that have built up the Seismic platform over time. So that's another way that our team is diverse, and that the things that we do on a day-to-day basis are actually very different. So I've got Warren up front left, and right behind him is David Campbell. We call him Soup, obvious reasons. And these people are the Associate SE program, as exists today. Actually, the young lady on the back row, Chelsea, just went to the field. So she was actually just promoted to the field, and she is the 13th person who has done that through our program in 4.5 years. So pretty excited about that. Last thing to say about Warren is this is completely a program that Warren and I have built. I could not have done it without him. He is not my right-hand man. I always say he's my right arm man. He's that important. And so I really appreciate all his work and partnership on this. So we've built out this program. Like I said, it's been in place for about 4.5 years now, and we have realized some successes. And I think that first number there is huge as far as understanding if the program has been successful. And it's the idea that over 4.5 years, 13 SEs into the field. So that means that's 13 sales engineers that Seismic didn't have to go hire and ramp up and train. And if you look at the second bullet, because they've gone through this program, because of the things that they've learned, they're immediately effective. So ramp time in the field is effectively zero. They're able to get started really, really quickly. If you've ever had to hire an SE, you know that sometimes these people are very difficult to hire. It's hard to find us sometimes. Now, there's probably a few on the market right now because of the current economic conditions that we're all facing, but typically they are hard to find. And I take a lot of pride in that last bullet point as well. At Club, I think there were 12 SEs at Club, and 6 of them had been through the program. So again, we feel like there's some real value that we've demonstrated to the company through this program that we've put together for associate sales engineers. I spoke earlier about looking for talent in different places. And this is something that we've actually done a good job at, is breaking away from those traditional entry points. Someone called it out, the former sellers and SMEs. Absolutely. And if we look at the first several people who came through our program, that was the mold that we had in place. It was a BDR and SDR who had done the job for a while. They had some interest in sales engineering, so they reached out. And we've got a process where we can start introducing them into the concept, and then they actually have to present to us so we can see what they would look like. But yeah, a bunch of the initial ones were that. We've got a couple of people who had been account managers here, and they did a career pivot to come on the pre-sale side of the house, away from managing customer accounts. But the last 4 hires are the tiles that you see breaking out of the screen. So a lot of you know the story that we actually did hire an opera diva, and she has done absolutely fantastic work in her job as a pre-sales professional now. We've got one young man who went and got his electrical engineering degree and decided, well, I don't really like that. So he went and got his economics degree. He says, no, I don't want to do that either. And I said, you're the perfect pre-sales person now. And he's doing fantastic work. Got a former teacher. Now she's already gone to the field, but I think teachers have so many transferable skills to pre-sales. That's an incredible source of talent, and they are hard-working people. So if you're looking for any pre-sales talent, go find some teachers who may be wanting to pivot over. And then finally, we've got a person who was a chemical engineer, and they were working long hours at a factory, and they like their job a little bit better now, but super smart, able to pick up the software very, very quickly, and doing a great job. So this is significant to me because, again, we are looking beyond those traditional points. Some of these were people who were who I found through networking on LinkedIn, just having some exposure out there and looking to build a warm bench. I've got a pretty good warm bench right now. So as I get headcount, I can talk to those people and see if they're interested in joining us. We had a teacher. The teacher was referred to us through someone who worked here at Seismic. So referrals are always great. And I think our recruiting department actually ran across the economics major for us. So those are probably some of the more standard places to get talent. But again, you can find them other places too. You got to go look for it. So let's get into some nuts and bolts here about actually building the program out. And as I was thinking about this with Warren, the first step is this idea of your ICP. Now, this isn't ideal customer profile. This is your ideal candidate profile. I think it's really important that you figure out what it is that you're looking for in this new talent that you want to bring on and onboard and train. And the 4 icons there, I talk about this all the time, so you may have heard me say this before, but the first thing I look for is a friendly human who can have a conversation. And that may sound kind of trite and silly, but really, there are people who can't have a conversation. So I want that, and I want the friendly human part, because you are in a sales role. And so a lot of the work that we do in pre-sales is having conversations, listening, learning. So I think that's super critical. I think that's something that's easy to suss out, but I also think that's something that's incredibly difficult to train. So I want someone who has that. The pickaxe represents the idea of the grit for the grind. In my experience, the role of pre-sales is very cyclical in nature. There are weeks that you have no idea how you're going to get everything done that you need to complete. Then there's other weeks where you've got a little extra time on your hands. And so you've got to have the mental fortitude to withstand that. And you've got to have the mental discipline to know how to use that downtime to better yourself, to better your environment that you're using for your demonstrations, to learn something, to find a webinar, to attend Demo Fest and get better at your craft. So grit for the grind. The lower left one is all about a technical curiosity. I don't need someone who can program in 14 languages. That's great. That could be really, really helpful. But for this associate SE program, I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for someone who's demonstrated technical curiosity over time, maybe through how they've picked up different softwares or something. But I think the software itself, those hard skills are things that I can train and coach someone on. But I just want that curiosity to be there. And then the last one, if you don't recognize that icon because you're not quite as old as I am, that's an old-fashioned cash register, my friends, where you would actually give someone paper money and they would give you back change. Making change seems to be a lot more difficult than it used to be for whatever reason. But anyway, the cash register is there to represent the fourth trait that I look for, which is you just got to understand that you're in a sales position. So what that is all about is your job at the end of the day is to secure that technical win and help advance the opportunity with your sales partner so that the company can recognize the revenue and win that business. And you got to understand that if you can't do that, you can be a great SE, but if you can't help close the deal, then you're probably not going to have a lengthy career as an SE. But understanding that we're in a sales role, acknowledging that, accepting that is super important. A lot of times when I talk to people who are interested in investigating pre-sales, and we talk about this, and well, what should I do? What you should do is learn a little bit about sales methodologies. Go do some research on that. Learn about Sandler and reversing. Learn about the challenger sale. Understand the different stages of a sales cycle and try to get comfortable with that. And that will go a long way to help you build up this idea of a sales acumen. So step one, your ICP, friendly human, grit for the grind, technically curious, and understand you're in a sales role. Once you've got that, the next thing you need to do is build out your job description. And ChatGPT can be your friend for this, but there's some things you definitely need in there. You need to have a description of what is the daily work that they're going to do. For us at Seismic, our associate SEs, their daily work is comprised of managing the demo tenants that the field SEs use, building out new assets to tell better stories, helping track down technical questions for the SEs in the field. And this daily work really helps to build their product knowledge and build their technical confidence towards that role of being an engineer, a sales engineer in the field. Think about their reporting structure. That's really important to put in place. We've got it set up where we have a lead person, a team lead for the associate SEs, and then they report into Warren, who's a director of global pre-sale services. Think about the compensation plan. Do you want an associate SE to be tied to a quota? I don't, and that's just me personally, because they're early in their career. They may not have a lot of direct control over that opportunity. So it is a grouped plan for the associates where it's basically based on everything, right? They're incented to help everyone do everything. And I think that's probably the right way for it. The fourth one is a career path. Have all these steps drawn out, have that documented so they can see what the natural progression would be. And as you've got, documented from associate SE to sales engineer to senior sales engineer or whatever, I also think it's important to have descriptions around each of the roles and what are the requirements to move from one to the other. So this idea of putting the path before them, but also helping them understand how to walk that path and how to be successful as they move through their career. And the last one is important because you're going to get asked this from your leadership. What are the metrics and measures you can put in place to help understand if this is working or not? So I threw out, 13 SEs. That's a really hard thing to put on a dashboard, but we keep that as a measure that's important. Some of the other metrics we look at are how involved everyone is. We've got the ability to have a ticketing system that ties the work that the associates do to opportunities. So we can see how much overall opportunity they impact, and we can see how many different things that they've built over time. So build out the job description. That's thing number 2. Then the third thing, it's a big one. You need a good onboarding plan. And our onboarding plan has gone through many, many different revisions. It started off as just being a document that we would use to kind of walk through the steps that we needed. Now, that was pretty easy when it was 4 people back when we first started this thing. The team's grown quite a bit since then. And so having a system in place for this became really important. So we went from a document to a project management tool where we were able to just basically duplicate the plan as we were bringing new people to the team. We've got it divided up into 30 and 60 and 90 days, and we tried to set it up so that they can contribute immediately. We tried to set it up so there are things that they learn in those first 30 days where they can actually start contributing to the team, because that really helps. Helps someone feel like they're part of the team, helps them feel like they're contributing. So that was really important. We've got the check-ins at each of those 30, 69 days as well. And that's just a chance to review what we've done so far. Are there any course corrections we need to make? And then look forward to the next 30 days and what are some of the things that we expect that we may need to address or think about. We assign 2 different people in their lives when we bring them on board as part of this onboarding plan. The first is what we call their GPS buddy. And that's just someone else on our broad team for them to call up and ask a really simple question of. I mean, they can call and ask anyone, but we try to buddy them up with somebody. But then we also give them a mentor. The mentor is an SE in the field on another team. And we look for mentors that we would like for our associate to emulate. So we want them to learn, how do they prepare for opportunities? How do they do discovery? How do they think about structuring the story around the product demonstration? We want our mentors to involve them as much as possible. If they've got a low risk opportunity, maybe they could even deliver part of that demonstration. But that's a relationship that we push on to the mentor and the associate. Warren and I don't really get involved in that. We check in with each of them, but it's their relationship to own and utilize. And one of the things that we've done that has really yielded a lot of great benefits is this idea of stretch projects. And there's a bunch of different examples. One example of a stretch project is actually presenting at our customer show. So we took one of our associates, we threw her just right into the middle of it for her to work with the product managers and product marketing and learn the story and learn the software, and then actually help deliver it at our customer show. And she did a great job. And the amount of learning that she did over working that project was immeasurable and invaluable. I've told the story a few times. I think of it as taking away your kids and just kind of, you throw them in the middle of the pool, you throw them in the middle of the lake, whatever your preference is, but you stand there and you watch them, and you've got the life buoy handy, right? And you're going to jump in after them if you need to. You're going to let them struggle a little bit, right? But you're going to put resources around them to ensure that they're successful. That struggle is important. You don't let them struggle too much, but the struggle is important because that's where the learning really comes into play. And then the last bullet there, talking about this continued development. As it kind of wrap up this program, you're going to have some really clear ideas about where you need to invest going forward. In other words, you may have someone who has really great soft skills, and maybe you need to continue to work on their technical ability. You may have the opposite. You may have someone who needs to dig a bit deeper into discovery because they hadn't had too much of an opportunity to do that. So that's what I mean about continued development. It's going to be really specific areas that you want to address based on this individual and where they're at in their journey. Really, it's that simple. So you really have to figure out what your ICP is. Take some time on that job description. That's what people are going to see as they're making decisions to potentially apply for that position and join you. So you got to understand, you got to be able to tell them clearly what it is you're going to want them to do. And HR can probably help you out with that too, right? And then the onboarding plan, I think, is super critical. I talked about, we had it as a document that we turned into a project management tool. I guess the most amazing story is, and Warren likes to tell this one too, is during one 12-month period of time, we onboarded 7 associate SEs. Now, we were still a fairly small team at the time. I think it was 3 of us who onboarded 7, and we could not have done that without a system in place for the onboarding. So it was really, I'm really glad that we had spent the time. We got some people looking at us funny when we spent so much time building that onboarding plan, but it really ended up benefiting us greatly in the end. So once you got these, then just go start finding some amazing diverse candidates to add to your team. All right. Now we've got a little bit of audience engagement that I would like to do. And Tom, I need your help here again, because I've got 3 questions. I want to spend a little time with you guys, and then I'm happy to take questions that you may have about what we've discussed this afternoon. But the first one is, I'd really be interested to hear people share something that you've learned through the presentation so far. Just put it there in the chat and Ty can share some of those.
Pam says the onboarding plan is essential.
Yeah, Pam, I would agree 100%. We actually ended up using Monday.com for ours, and that's a nice, simple tool that's worked out super well. All right. People being quiet about that one. How about something you liked? Maybe that's an easier ask.
While we're waiting, I can share something I liked was just hearing that you're doing this, right? Like, this is something, as someone that came outside of this industry, when I heard the term pre-sales, that was even foreign to me. And so I just appreciate that there are people like you and companies out there doing this. We're getting some questions coming in now.
Sure.
One was, not questions, sorry, responses. Laying out the 3 steps to build the associate program. The examples were solid. Some good feedback there. Great word graph of the different types of diversity.
Yeah,
It wasn't hypothetical. It was real. Really good stuff.
Oh, good. Good. All right. You guys are scaring me because you're a little bit quiet. But again, I can't see the chat. So, and the last one is there anything that one of you will do? And while you're kind of working on those responses, some of that kind of came up is that, yeah, this is a real program. We have seen the real benefits from it. And it's interesting because pre-sales has made such a pivot in the time that I've been involved, which has been quite a while. And it's nice to see the profession growing. I mean, to have this amazing event that Consensus is doing for free, that's hard to believe. 3 days of content, that's huge. To have 40,000 something people now involved in the pre-sales collective, to have, training programs in place. We've got, Chris's 6 Habits program that's up and running now. This is really cool. Our GPS team is modeled a little bit on what Todd Jansen had built at Salesforce, and they've gone even further, but that's a lot more people than we have. But you're starting to see more companies see the value of having these support teams for pre-sales. Internally, Seismic, we're known as like force multipliers, because if I've got a very skilled, very experienced SE out in the field, I don't want them messing around with the demo environment. I want them talking to customers and taking those relationships to the next level and moving the deals forward, and allow the associate SEs to actually work on the demo tenants and increase their knowledge. Again, it's a big value on our team that we've got people who have been doing pre-sales work for for 19 years in some cases. We've got employee number 2 with the company on our team, and they're exposed to all that great knowledge and wisdom and experience, and they can take advantage of that and learn from it. So that's been a big plus as well. Some other companies will have academy programs. You hear that word quite a bit, where they're spooling up an academy program. I know my buddy Mark over at ServiceNow will do that from time to time as they need people, and a few other companies as well. I've heard where some academy programs base it on current need. So maybe they need 3 SEs. They'll open up 3 spots in the academy with the idea if these people are going through the program for that specific need. We've always done it a little bit different. We've been finding great talent, developing them. And I talk about it as I'm keeping a bunch of nice, shiny new SEs on the shelf. So when Seismic needs them, we have them. And that's worked out pretty well. The thing that we've been experiencing lately, like everyone else has, is we're not needing quite as many new, shiny SEs as we had in the past. So that's something that we definitely have to keep an eye on and keep working towards. Any responses tied to the will do prompt?
Don't see any specifically, just a lot of praise for the just promoting all of these different ways that people can get involved. Like you mentioned, Demo Fest, Pre-Sales Collective, and things like that.
Cool.
Sarah, for example, said completely agree. It's great that we are all sharing our best practices in forums like this event. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Listen, I would be happy to, I want to spend plenty of time for questions because I anticipated some questions around this, but happy to start tackling those now.
Yeah, let's jump right in. So we'll start with Tony. He asks tips to break the groupthink habits.
Come on, Tony, give me an easy one to start with, dude. I think the best way to break the groupthink habit is to demonstrate success in doing something different. So I had a lot of question marks thrown at me with some of the different places I went for this talent. Matter of fact, I had one pre-sales leader tell me, no, you don't understand. This person really has to have industry experience. And I said, no, I don't think so. I think they're going to have to, they're going to have to learn it either way. Anyway, long story short, that person's now on that person's team and just crushing it and doing a great job. So I think putting the evidence in people's faces in a way and showing them that, yes, this does work. This is how you make it work and you can get success from it. I think that's a great way to kind of get them to look at something differently and break that groupthink habit.
Awesome. Tim has a couple questions here. We'll start with this one. Would love to understand what specifically the associate SEs are responsible for when they initially onboard to add value. Also, how is the onboarding different from someone you might hire directly into a backfill for a field SE versus an associate SE?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. That's a good one. So what they're responsible for immediately is basically 2 things. We call them TMRs, team member requests. So we use Vivint's Hero tool tied into our Salesforce instance to make requests from our team to assist with different things. So that could be spinning up a new demo tenant, building out a new demo asset, things like that. But the other thing is we've got a Slack channel for when the SEs in the field have different questions. Instead of forcing them to try to track down the PM and everybody else, we just take ownership of tracking that question down. And the ASEs have always done a great job of digging in. Again, selfishly, it's a great way to kind of force them to build some relationships and learn some stuff. So those are the things that they're doing. And we've got some of the onboarding time early on built to give them the tools that they need to be able to respond to those 2 things. And again, that's what allows them to start contributing pretty early on. For the second part of the question, how is our onboarding different from someone we may hire directly into a backfill role? Sometimes it's not. There have been a few, I want to say it's 3 or 4. Warren's probably correcting me on this, but I think there's been 3 or 4 where one of the other SE leaders hired an SE into a role, but they actually saw value in what we were doing. They said, hey, would you mind if this person did a tour of duty with your team first? It's like, of course not. So they came and they did the work alongside the associate SEs for 3 months, then went to the field. And one of those particular people actually was at club, I think it was last year. So they did pretty well. So the SE leaders in field certainly have their own programs where they can hire someone into and do their own onboarding and training. But we've had a few times where they've saw value in what we were doing and took advantage of that for those backfill roles.
That's great. Thank you. We have a couple more questions left. So if anyone wants to throw any more questions, feel free to do so. I'm going to share another one from Tim here. It says, are your associate SEs comped any differently? I know you alluded to not having quotas, but what's that maybe like for them?
Yeah, we just go off of a shared quota where we determine what that target is, and they all participate in that. And then they have another component, which is based on measurable business objectives, or MBOs. And we use these quarterly to drive different projects and sometimes content that we're working towards. So those three components tied together.
Great. And then just a couple more here. Tim has one more that alludes and ties in nicely to a question that Katie had. So I'm going to share them both here, and then maybe we can go over them all. So Tim asks, what is the criteria and length of time for an associate SE to move up? What is the time frame for making the decision for someone that won't make it? And then we'll jump into Katie's question right after this.
Okay. You would think that your friends would jump into your session, ask, softball questions instead of the really, really difficult ones, right? Thanks, Tim. This has been the biggest challenge to the program so far, in that when someone comes to the program, I can't say, hey, you're going to do this for 6 months, you're going to do this for 12 months. What I tell them is, we're going to put incredible, amazing resources around you. We're going to build you into a really incredible SE. And at some point, we're going to have a spot in the field open, and that should be how it works out. But when the spot opens, it's actually, on them and the hiring manager. And I tell them, and we've done this several times lately, I tell them, when that happens, I become an advocate. I'm not going to go tell the hiring manager to hire you. I'm going to answer their questions. I'm going to help you prep for the interview and everything else that you need to do. But this is your graduation, right? It's time to grow up and go take care of this. So the answer to the first question is, I don't really have any control over that. All I can control is helping that person get ready for the opportunity. Now, so far, it's worked out pretty well that as people have been ready, we've got positions in the field, and it just seems to work out. Thank you, universe. For the second part of it, what's the time frame for making a decision for someone that won't make it? We've had that happen as well. And we use a very careful process. The onboarding tool is a great part of that, because it lets us know if we're tracking or we're not tracking. As we get further down the road and they start delivering some demonstrations, we start watching that. It gives us some coaching opportunities. And the time frame really becomes, two things impact that, right? The first one is, are they contributing? Are they doing a good job? Are they taking care of their day-to-day work? If not, then that's one decision point that we have to make. The second one is, are they becoming impatient? So they don't want to stick around and wait for the opportunity. That could be another decision point that they could take into account.
Great. And then Katie jumped right in also. What is the launch ramp timeline like going from associate to field?
Yeah, for the associates that we've hired, it's typically been anywhere from 6 months to a year. Now, that being said, I've got a young man right now who's been on the team coming up on 2 years, maybe a little over 2 years, and we just haven't had a position come available. So, that's one of those times where I wish there was position, because he's definitely ready. He's an incredible talent, but there's just not right now. But there are other paths available too. We've investigated, does it make sense for him to start looking at a platform architect role? Because one of the things we've done here is we've actually had associate platform architects. And again, for us, a platform architect, maybe you call it a solution architect, but these are people who are more technical and can answer those deep technical questions that maybe are beyond what the SEs in the field have knowledge on. So again, we're going to look for all kinds of different paths that would fit for this person and just try to help them grow.
I love that. It gives more opportunity, right? Whether it's, someone's in a waiting season, they still have some opportunity to grow in other areas. And I think that's great that there's like, little valves or pockets they can jump into.
Yeah.
Well,
Just one real true story, because I don't tell you guys false stories, but one of our associates who had been promoted to sales engineer and was still within the GPS team, was still within our team doing some things. She developed such a passion for the product, for actually working with the product people, that she recently jumped over to the product team. So she is now part of the technical communication team, and we're really, really proud of her. And she's going to continue to do great work. But it's cool because to see this passion around software, and then she was always passionate about the product piece of it, and now she's actually able to follow something a little bit different. So yeah, Seismic has really been good about allowing people to move around the company, sometimes laterally, sometimes it's promotion. But I think that's amazing because it gives people opportunities to check out different things that they may not be able to otherwise.
That's great. We've got another question rolling in before we have a softball question for you. So Joel first asked right before you actually alluded to the answer of what you're looking for in these associates. And then Tom kind of piggybacks off of this, but says, apologize if this was already discussed, but in terms of pipelining the associate SC talent, are you looking for sales folks with a knowledge and interest of tech, graduates, or diverse skill sets from outside?
Yeah, I think it's some of all that, Tom. I listed my 4 out. If I'm repeating this, I apologize. But if you didn't hear it, is the idea of a friendly human who can have a conversation. Now, when I say that, what I'm really talking about is someone who has good verbal communication skills, obviously, who is able to practice that active listening and empathy and those types of things, because so much of the work we do is a conversation with another person, right? So for me, that's one of the main ones I'm looking for. The idea that you are in a sales role, that is certainly important. So, BDRs and SDRs are great sources because they understand that sales piece of it. Plus, the way I think, pre-sales is a little bit different as far as its demands than BDRs. But, if I talk about that second one, the grit for the grind, man, successful BDRs and SDRs, they have the grit for the grind because they've been working hard, calling people, doing emails, getting the constant rejections, getting the people like me who don't even return the emails or answer the phone. And then the last one was the idea of that technical curiosity. So again, not looking for someone with all kinds of programming cred or different degrees in MIS. But if they've got that curiosity around software, I think that gives me enough to work with, that I can train and coach the other aspects that I'm looking for. And it's proven out pretty good so far. My ICP, I think it works. So I'm really happy with what I've put together for that.
That's awesome. And I kind of just a question maybe I have on top of that.
Did you type it into the Q&A, Ty? No.
I didn't, so I apologize. But just to kind of piggyback off what Tom's saying, speaking about externally, we saw in the chat earlier, someone had mentioned teachers are great SEs, which totally agree with. And I'm a product of, like I said, a B2C world and a public speaking background. And there's so many people out there. How are you finding them? How are you attracting people that are outside of this realm of B2B and software and sales?
That's going to be next year's DemoFest presentation. I can't give that away. So people start snagging all my candidates. No, honestly, it's a few things, right? Anyone who's been listening to me for a little bit or following me knows the story where the last couple of years I've made a very conscious, very intentional effort to be a better networker on LinkedIn and share some of my thoughts and views, specifically around pre-sales and leadership and things like that. That's developed a bit of a following. And because of that, I get people reaching out to me all the time. Hey, I'd like to learn more about pre-sales. Now, some of the time, as soon as I say, sure, then they start pitch slapping me about some software they want me to buy or some coaching service they want to sell me. That's annoying. But more than not, it's people who are just really wanting to hear more about pre-sales. What is the job like? How would they prepare themselves for getting into the job? And it really gives me an opportunity to talk about our program and some of the things, and typically they're really, really interested. So that's where I talk about my warm bench. So if I were given a head count for a new associate SE, there's like 10, 20 people that I'd reach out to. It's like, hey, I've got the head count. Are you interested? And that really gives me a great range of talent to choose from. Yes, I have a talent team here at Seismic, and they're fantastic, and they get me some really good people, but I can put some people into the funnel too, just through that work I've done. The second thing is, if you have any experience at all in pre-sales, there is no reason why you shouldn't reach out to the Pre-Sales Academy and volunteer some of your time, at least as a mentor. There's mentor, there's career coach, there's facilitators. They can help you do any of that. I've been a mentor for the Pre-Sales Academy for a while, and it's not a big lift. It's a couple of phone calls, and then you do one mock interview. So to be able to talk to those people, to have access to those people, that's another great way to kind of get an idea, because I see great people coming through that program. It's like, yeah, I'd like to have them work with me one day. So there's a couple of places. It's really just about getting yourself and your message out there. And again, before you get yourself and your message out there, you've got to figure out what your point of view is, what your message is, and then just be authentic when you're talking to people.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. We've got one more question. It's a softball one.
Thank
Chris
goodness.
wants to know what tequila is in the Ritas tonight.
Well, after all the hard questions from Tony and Tim, it's going to be an anejo that will, do very well. Yeah, it's probably Addictivo again tonight at this point. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the softball question from my buddy.
Thanks, Chris. And thank you, everyone, so much for joining us for today's session. We're about to wrap it up. And thank you, Ron. We are very excited to be bringing DemoFest back on the road again. We had such a great time in San Francisco in February, and we can't wait to bring the event to London and New York City later this year. You can register to join us at either of these events at demofest.com or at the link in the Docs tab on the right of your screen. We also encourage you to stop by our expo hall to visit the premier partners of DemoFest. Remember, there is no transfer of money involved in this event, so all of our partners have gone above and beyond to contribute to making this event successful for all of you. Thank you again for joining us for this session, and thank you, Ron, for just sharing the amazing things you're doing with your teams over there and all that valuable knowledge and insight. Up on the screen, you'll see the upcoming sessions. You'll automatically be pushed to the next session in your track, and you can switch tracks or sessions by toggling the agenda tab to the left of your screen, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah.